Greetings, fellow members of the Esoteric Order of Gamers. Well, you may know that I enjoy a bit of tabletop miniatures wargaming. However, I've been looking for a long time for some really high quality terrain to put on my tables. It takes a long time to make it myself, and I'd really just like to buy some really good stuff, paint it up and get it on the table. Something with a bit of flair, something with a bit of personality. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to find good terrain. There's not much available. Games Workshop used to make some really good stuff, but their stuff these days is so over-stylized, I don't want it on my table. I mean, where does a wargamer find some decent terrain around here? Well, at last I've found some terrain that I really like, and this is it. It's by a company called THMiniatures, and they're run by a guy called THMiniatures, and he makes this beautiful resin terrain himself, and he's currently selling it on a Kickstarter campaign. He's already run a Kickstarter campaign in the past that went very well and had more of a generic fantasy theme. This one has a volcano theme, so there's lots of lovely bubbling pits of lava, and the feature piece is this huge pit here, a dark altar, and you can buy it as this big pit thing, or you can add these extra bits and put a sarcophagus on the top and these inscribed pillars. It's beautiful. We've got some stalagmites here, little thing coming up, I don't know what that is, and another pool of lava. There's lots more on the Kickstarter page, and of course I'll put a link to it at the bottom of this page. Now, Thierry is a multiple Golden Demon Award winner. He's a fantastic miniatures painter, and he's worked for some of the best companies in the biz, like Rackham, for example. It really comes through in the quality of these pieces because they have a real flair. Often miniature terrain really doesn't have a lot of kind of illustrative design flair to it. This stuff looks like it's been done by someone who actually knows how to whip up a really good concept drawing and follow a concept through from start to finish. We've got this lovely, whoops, see, quite strong. We've got this lovely statue base here, and it can have a lava pit in the middle, or you can add the base of the statue here, just the broken feet, that goes on the top. As I said, this piece here has all these modular bits, and he's got some other pieces that you can buy that have modular bits as well. But there's a big range on the website. You can buy whatever pieces you want to fit your game. Another good thing is that they will fit lots of genres, not just fantasy. This would work just as well for a science fiction planet, bubbling with lava. You could use it for steampunk, whatever genre you prefer to do your miniature tabletop gaming in. So as I filmed this, the campaign has only got 10 days to go, so I quickly have to paint up some of these so I can show you how they look on the tabletop and give you time to go along and back Thierry's Kickstarter if you wish. So the first thing I have to do is do a little preparation, and then I'm going to undercoat them, and then let's do some painting. Let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do with these pieces is just a little bit of preparation, and there's hardly any to do because there's no mold lines or anything I can see. The detail is crisp and sharp. It's beautiful, obviously very high quality resin. There's just a little bit of edge stuff here that I'm going to clean off with a scalpel. And then the next thing I'm going to do is give them a bit of a wash with slightly soapy water, a bit of detergent in some water. And that will clean off any casting residue which may cause problems for paint to adhere. I don't know if that's absolutely necessary with these pieces, but it's always a nice, safe thing to do just in case. So here are all the lovely samples that Thierry sent me to have a look at, and I'm about to use Army Painter Black on them. And voila! As they say in Quebec, where Thierry is from, I've undercoated them all. And here I've just got a basic black undercoat, which is going to be the basis for a whole lot of dry brushing I'm going to do to bring up the lovely texture of these pieces. So we're all set up to do some painting. I've got my trusty paint racks here. I've got a couple of large brushes that I'm going to dry brush with, and of course I've got my undercoated terrain pieces. So I want to do a base undercoat, and I'm going to start with a nice dark brown, just to give it a bit of brown underneath the grey, make the dry brushing a little bit more interesting. And then I'm going to follow that up with a dark grey, in this case Mechanica Standard Grey by Citadel, and then I'll go up to some lighter tones of grey, Dawnstone, and eventually working up to a very pale grey. And just put a few different tones, maybe a bit of brown in there as well, stuff like that. Do a bit of dry brushing and make these things look great before I start painting in any details. Right, let's get dry brushing. Now, of course, you know this technique. It's just putting some paint on the brush, wiping most of the paint off on a piece of card or paper, and then running the brush lightly over the surface of the model or terrain in this case. And it just picks up the paint on the high areas of the surface. So doing the same here with the large pit. Now I'm going to a dark grey is the next one. You can see how that's starting to bring out the texture now, looking good. Very quick and easy. So here's all the terrain dry brushed. So this is a good base coat for everything. It's brought out the texture and it's looking good already. Now I'm using brown to dry brush the wood areas in this fence barricade piece. Now I'm going to paint the skulls. So there are skulls liberally dotted throughout the terrain. It's a bit of a Games Workshop touch actually, and it makes it blend in nicely with that Games Workshop terrain. So painting these skulls now using a bit of bleached bone kind of colour. There they are, just a base coat. Now at this point I decided that I wanted the rock or stone of the shrines to be a slightly different colour. So I dry brushed them with a dark brown to make them different from the grey of the surrounding rock. And that just makes them a little bit more interesting. Now I'm dry brushing that dark brown with a lighter brown just on the edges. And that gives it a nice amount of depth, as you can see. And makes it stand out from the surrounding rock area. Getting a bit of Army Painter Strong Tone wash. And I'll wash those skulls. This will shade them nicely. And after I've done this, I'll do a bit of basic highlighting on the skulls. Just painting them as I would a normal miniature. Here they are with a bit of highlighting. A bit more highlighting on the wooden areas. Using a much lighter tone just on the edges. Okay, it's time to tackle the lava areas, of which there are quite a few on these terrain pieces. First thing I'm doing is undercoating them all in white. Now this is going to take several coats, so I get a nice flat white. That's just the first coat. Picking out the areas where the lava is flowing down and pooling. You can see this is just after one coat. It's quite streaky, but this will take probably about 3 coats to get a nice flat white like this. That gives me a basis for adding the lava colours. So the first thing I'm going to do is give all the lava a basic yellow, because that's the basis of my lava colour. So again, just painting over the white, and like the white, this will take a couple of coats. And there we go, looking good. Now it's time to move on to the airbrushing. Well, it's been quite a while since I used an airbrush, probably about 6 years really, but I just bought myself another cheap one. My old one is in storage because I really wanted to use an airbrush for the lava effect on these terrain pieces. So I've got myself a compressor and a cheap airbrush, and I'm starting off with an orange just around the edges of the lava area. And I was actually surprised how quickly I picked up using an airbrush again. It's pretty easy. You just have to have a light touch and be a bit careful, and it's not too hard to get a good effect. You can see already it's really getting a strong lava effect, adding a bit of orange. You can see how effective this is, and so much easier than using a brush. So that's it, that's my lava effect. Went over it a few times with red, orange and yellow until I got the effect I was looking for, and I think it looks fantastic. The glow from the lava is really effective, and it's really going to stand out on the tabletop. Of course, these pieces don't have to feature lava. If you're using this for science fiction gaming, for example, you might want to have pools of industrial effluent, or something like that. You could make them green, disgusting radioactive pools, for example. Whatever you prefer. Well, fellow members of the Esoteric Order of Gamers, I've now painted this up and put it on some of my terrain, brought out some of my figures, and now I'm just gazing open-mouthed at the splendour of it all. This stuff is great. I love it. I'm going to spend a bit more time doing a bit more detailing in my own time, but it's important that I get this video finished and get it online because the Kickstarter campaign only has a week to run, and I want to give you all the opportunity to go and buy some of this fantastic stuff. I really am so impressed by this terrain. I've been looking for something like this for a long time. I was also impressed while I was painting it with the fact that it's very sturdy, very solid. I don't think it will break easily. But the best thing is that it just brings a lot of life and personality to your tabletop, as you can see. It paints up well. There's a huge range of stuff. It's good quality. I can't recommend it highly enough, and I'm about to go off and basically give him a whole lot of money because I want all the old stuff from his first Kickstarter as well, and I'm just going to cover my tabletop with this fantastic terrain. So there you go, double thumbs up from the Esoteric Order of Gamers, THMiniatures, resin terrain. I highly recommend going and backing the Kickstarter, and I hope you've enjoyed this look at this stuff and how to paint it up. That's all from me, Universal Head, Esoteric Order of Gamers, orderofgamers.com. See you next time.